The arrival of human men. The arena on planet Zinthra buzzed with energy. It was Selection Day, a special event held once every cycle. Alien women from all across the planet gathered in the high dome, dressed in bright feathers and shimmering stones. They had come to watch the strongest alien males compete and choose the most powerful for mating and status. Tall, wide-shouldered alien males roared and flexed their massive arms. Their scales sparkled under the lights. One of them smashed a stone bench with his bare hand. Another lifted a beast skeleton above his head. The females clapped, hissed, and laughed. Strength was beauty here. Muscles meant worth. Look at Carzone. He broke the fire column last year. A young alien woman giggled to her sister. Shh, I'm waiting for Vrolak, the sister replied. He can crush steel in one breath. Suddenly, the crowd quieted. A new group entered the arena. Not aliens, but something different. They were smaller. No tails, no glowing eyes. Their skin looked soft and their bodies had strange shapes. The guards introduced them with a booming voice. Behold, the humans, from the planet Earth, visitors by special invitation. Many alien women blinked. Some leaned forward. Others began to laugh. These are males? One shouted, pointing. They look like soft larvae. Where are their spines? Their claws? Another asked. One human man named Daniel stood near the front. He had short brown hair, calm blue eyes, and wore a plain shirt and boots. He didn't look angry. He just looked confident. Carzone, the strongest alien male, stepped toward him. Do you wish to join the trials, human? Daniel smiled. Why not? The arena burst into laughter. He will be crushed. His bones will snap like twigs. Even the Empress of Zinthra, seated high on her glowing throne, raised an eyebrow. She tapped her long fingers on her armrest. Her voice echoed across the arena. Let him try. It will amuse me. Daniel stepped forward. The first trial was simple. The stone lift. A huge boulder carved with glowing marks sat at the center of the arena. No alien female had ever seen it lifted. Only Carzone had moved it in the past, and even he struggled. One by one, alien males tried to lift the stone. Some grunted, others roared, none succeeded. Then it was Daniel's turn, the crowd whispered. Alien women leaned in, some still smirking, others strangely curious. Daniel knelt beside the stone. He didn't roar. He didn't show off. He just placed his hands under it and focused. Be careful, human, a guard warned. Your body may break. Daniel took a deep breath. Then slowly the stone began to rise. At first no one believed it. He's shaking, he'll drop it. But the stone kept rising, higher and higher. Daniel's arms trembled, veins showing through his skin. His face tightened with effort, but he didn't stop. Then he stood up. The giant sacred boulder was above his head. The arena went silent. No roars, no laughter, just stunned silence. Even Carzone's mouth fell open. Then cheers. But not from the males, from the females. Alien women clapped, hissed with excitement, and some even stood up. He did it, one shouted. He actually did it. The Empress leaned forward on her throne, eyes fixed on the human. Daniel gently lowered the stone and stepped back. Sweat dripped from his brow, but he smiled. It's not about how big you are, he said softly, just loud enough for the arena to hear. It's about how deep you're willing to go. The translator bot repeated his words in the alien language. The meaning hit deep. Several females placed their hands over their hearts, a Zinthran sign of quiet admiration. Carzone stormed away. The alien men were no longer the only stars of the arena. That night, whispers spread like wildfire through the city. Did you see the human? He lifted the unliftable. But that wasn't what stayed in the Empress's mind. It was his eyes, calm, steady, not hungry for attention, but strong in a different way. She sat back in her throne and whispered, Bring him to me. Daniel stood under the silver moons of Zinthra that night, looking out over the glowing city from a tall platform. The stars above him looked familiar, yet everything below was strange. Alien creatures walked the streets. Neon plants shimmered in the wind, and in the distance the great dome of the Empress's palace glowed like a crown. He didn't feel like a hero. His arms still ached from lifting the sacred stone. But something inside told him today was only the beginning. Behind him, the sound of footsteps, sharp, armored, and heavy. A tall alien guard approached. His green eyes glowed, and his voice was flat. "You are summoned." Daniel turned confused. "By who?" "The Empress." The word sent chills down his spine. The Empress was powerful, feared by all. Why would she want to see him? Still, he followed. Inside the palace, the air felt warm and thick with perfume. Golden lights moved through the walls like liquid. Alien servants bowed as Daniel walked past, though many looked at him like a puzzle they couldn't solve. A human male, being treated like royalty? Impossible. He entered a large chamber. It was quiet. At the far end, the Empress sat on her throne, her long robes flowing like water down the steps. Her face was unreadable, but her eyes, bright violet and unblinking, watched Daniel closely. "You surprised my court today," she said softly. Daniel bowed politely. "I didn't mean to offend." "You didn't," she said, rising slowly. "You changed something." She walked toward him, graceful and strong. "Our males have trained for cycles to impress us, yet none did what you did." "I didn't come to impress anyone," Daniel replied. "Just to learn." The Empress stopped in front of him. "Then let me give you another lesson." She turned and raised her voice. "Summon the arena." Suddenly, the walls around them began to shift and fall away. In seconds, the chamber transformed into a combat ring. Floating platforms hovered above, and glowing weapons lined the edges. Daniel blinked. "What is this?" "A test," the Empress replied. "Of real power." From the other side of the ring, a tall alien warrior stepped forward. His armor was black as night, and his body looked like it was carved from stone. His name was Thranak, one of the top warriors of the Empress's guard. "He volunteered," the Empress said, her voice cool. "He says no human should ever lift our sacred stone. He thinks you cheated. Prove him wrong." Daniel took a step back. "Wait, I'm not a soldier." "Then fight like a man," Thranak growled, stepping into the ring. The Empress raised her hand. A gong echoed through the air. Daniel barely had time to think before Thranak rushed forward. The alien moved fast, too fast. His fist came down like a hammer. Daniel dodged, barely. His side scraped the ground, but he rolled and got back up. He knew he couldn't match Thranak's strength, so he had to be smart. Thranak charged again. This time, Daniel waited. At the last second, he ducked and used the alien's own speed to twist him around, sending him crashing into a wall of light. The crowd above gasped. Thranak roared and came back swinging, angry now. He landed a hit. Daniel flew back, landing hard on his side. His ribs screamed with pain. But he stood. He always stood. "I don't need to win," Daniel said through clenched teeth. "I just need to show I won't give up." The Empress stood now, watching with interest. Her heart beat faster. This man, this strange human, was not like the others. No weapons, no powers, just will. Daniel dodged again, then grabbed one of the glowing poles from the arena's edge. He didn't use it to strike. Instead, he waited. Thranak lunged once more, screaming in rage. Daniel planted the pole and flipped over him using leverage, causing the alien to fall face first into the ground. Dust rose. Silence. Thranak didn't get up. The gong sounded again. Daniel dropped the pole and collapsed to one knee, breathing hard. His lip was bleeding and one eye was already starting to swell. The Empress stepped into the ring. Everyone watched. She reached down and offered her hand. Daniel looked up, confused. "Your strength," she said softly, "is not in your muscles." He took her hand, and she helped him up. Alien women watching from the balconies exchanged looks. They no longer laughed at the humans. They no longer called them soft. The Empress looked around and spoke clearly. Let it be known, this human has passed the test of power, not by breaking, but by standing. The crowd erupted in cheers, this time for a human. The Empress of Zinthra sat in her quiet chamber, alone for the first time in many days. Her long cloak rested over her shoulders like shadowed wings, and her violet eyes stared at the floating screen before her. On it, the human named Daniel replayed. Every movement, every dodge, every time he stood when he should have fallen. She had watched it 5 times already, but her heart still tightened every time he rose with blood on his face and fire in his gaze. Alien males had tried to impress her for cycles with roars and muscle. They fought to dominate, to destroy, but this man, he fought to endure. He didn't try to conquer the ring, he survived it with thought and control. No hate, no pride, just purpose. A soft chime interrupted her thoughts. A voice followed. Empress, the human has requested permission to leave the palace. She blinked once. No, she said simply. Bring him to the garden. I wish to speak to him. Moments later, Daniel walked into the royal garden. Strange birds chirped. In glowing trees and the sky above shimmered with twin moons. He looked different now, not in clothes but in presence. He walked like someone who had earned respect. Even the guards bowed slightly as he passed. The Empress stood near a wide pond. Her back was to him, but her voice was soft and clear. You are not what I expected. Daniel stopped a few steps behind her. Neither is your world. She turned slowly. The glowing stones in the garden reflected in her eyes. You confuse me, human. You are not stronger, not faster, and yet you made the ground shake with your actions. Daniel smiled, tired, but calm. Where I come from, we're taught to keep going, even when everything says stop. She moved. Closer. Even when it hurts, especially then. They were silent for a while. Only the sound of wind in the trees and a distant alien flute filled the air. The Empress finally spoke again. When I was young, I believed power was everything. I watched my father win the throne with his fists and fear. I told myself I'd be just like him, ruling with strength. She looked into Daniel's eyes now. But you made me wonder, what if real power is something quieter? Daniel tilted his head. Like choosing mercy instead of revenge? She studied him. You speak like a teacher. I'm just a man who's lived through a few storms, he replied. There was a pause. Then she asked, Do you know what the court is saying? He nodded. That your people are starting to wonder if human men are different. They are not wondering, she said. They are declaring it. All over Zinthra, females are speaking of humans with awe. Some are questioning why they ever wanted loud, violent males. Daniel scratched the back of his neck. I didn't come here to change your culture. She stepped forward, close now. But you have. With no weapons, no war. Daniel looked up at her, searching her expression. Why did you really bring me here tonight? The Empress held his gaze. Her voice, when it came, was low and full of something almost vulnerable. I needed to see if what I felt during the fight was real, or just curiosity. He looked surprised. What did you feel? Something I was taught never to feel, she said. Trust and... She looked away for a second. Desire, not for control, but for understanding. Daniel took a careful breath. You've ruled with strength, but maybe now, it's time for something new. The Empress's eyes glowed slightly in the moonlight. And if I asked you to stay? Daniel looked at the garden around him. The alien stars, the strange trees, the guards watching from shadows, and then back to the woman in front of him. Why would you want a human beside you? He asked. Because, she said, stepping even closer. You remind me what power can be when it's wrapped in patience and not pride. You stood in front of my people and didn't ask for worship. You simply gave your best. And now, they follow you. Daniel felt something shift inside. This wasn't just admiration. This was change. Real, deep change in an empire that had never questioned itself until now. "I don't know what the future holds," he said. "But I won't run from it." The Empress nodded once. "Then walk with me." They strolled through the garden together under the light of 2 moons. Behind them, hidden among trees, alien women watched from a distance, whispering excitedly. The humans had arrived as guests. But now, they were becoming something more. And in the heart of the empire, the Empress had looked into a human's eyes and seen a future she never imagined. The palace was no longer quiet. The great halls that once echoed only with formal chants and footsteps now buzzed with whispers, arguments, and the low growls of alien males filled with rage and confusion. The name Daniel traveled like wildfire across the city, passed from soldier to servant, from market trader to noble house. Some said he lifted the sacred stone. Others said he defeated Thranak with tricks. But the worst rumor of all, the one that shook the very foundation of pride, was that the Empress had walked beside him under the moons. To many alien males, that was worse than defeat. It was humiliation. Inside the warrior barracks, Karzan sat in silence, staring at a wall made of cracked stone. His fists were bruised, his pride more so. His closest ally, General Vrex, paced behind him. "We are losing them," Vrex growled. "The females, they look at us like we are old weapons. Useless. Weak." "Because of one man," Karzan hissed, voice low and sharp. "No," Vrex snapped. "Because of one human." They both knew what must be done, not through politics, not through speeches. The alien way was simple, a challenge of blood. Meanwhile, Daniel stood on a balcony overlooking the central city. He didn't feel like a legend. His body still hurt from the duel. His mind was tired. But the beauty of the alien world kept him grounded, like he was somewhere between a dream and a test he didn't ask for. Then came the knock. He opened the door, and 2 guards stood stiff and formal. "You are summoned to the public arena," one said. "For what?" Daniel asked. "A formal challenge." Daniel's brows drew together. "From who?" The guard hesitated. "Karzan, champion of the South. He demands an open trial, for your honor, and hers." Daniel didn't need to ask whose hers they meant. He knew. That night, the grand arena roared louder than ever before. The fire towers burned bright, and the stone floor vibrated with stomps and chants. Thousands of alien males and females packed the stands. Some waved banners of old champions. Others held hand lamps glowing with Daniel's name drawn across them. The Empress sat in her high throne, expression cold, but unreadable. She had not stopped the challenge. She could not. To reject it would mean showing favoritism, something no ruler dared. Daniel entered the ring wearing nothing but reinforced cloth armor. Across from him, Karzan stood like a mountain of muscle and fury, holding 2 bladed staffs that glowed with red energy. The announcer stepped forward. "This is not a battle for death," he called out, "but for dominance and truth. Let it begin." A loud gong rang out. Karzan attacked first, fast and brutal. Daniel ducked under one blade and rolled to the side, but the second staff struck, his shoulder sending him stumbling. Pain exploded across his side, but he didn't fall. He had learned by now. Survive, adapt, outthink. Karzan struck again, roaring. Daniel used a trick from Earth. He dropped low and swept the alien's legs. It didn't bring Karzan down, but it threw off his rhythm. Daniel moved behind him and elbowed the back of his knee. The crowd gasped, but Karzan turned and grabbed him by the neck, lifting him off the ground. "You don't belong here," the alien growled in Daniel's face. "You're just a weak, soft creature. The Empress is ours." Daniel, even choking, managed to rasp, "Maybe." "That's the problem." Then he kicked off the alien's chest, twisting free, and landed hard but upright. Karzan came again, this time wild. He was fighting with rage now, not skill. Daniel ducked, jumped, dodged, and then, with a sudden push, slammed into Karzan's chest with his shoulder. The alien stumbled back, more from shock than power. Daniel grabbed one of the dropped staffs. He didn't use it to strike. He threw it out of the ring. The audience gasped. Daniel stepped forward and looked Curzon in the eye. This fight isn't about her. It's about your fear. Curzon screamed and charged, but Daniel sidestepped and let him fall into the sand. The arena went silent again. The Empress rose from her throne. Her voice echoed, strong and final. The fight is done. She walked into the arena herself. Every eye followed her. She didn't look at Curzon. She walked to Daniel and held out her hand again. This time, he didn't hesitate. She raised his arm high. This man, she said, has won, not through violence, but by proving strength is not just in arms, but in spirit. The female audience erupted in cheers. Even some males lowered their heads, not in shame, but in realization. Change had arrived, and its name was human. Daniel sat on the edge of the healing pool, his feet dipped in the glowing water. Strange blue steam rose around him, gently easing the bruises on his ribs. His knuckles were raw, his arms ached. But the weight in his chest was heavier than the pain in his body. He didn't enjoy fighting, he never had. But here, in this world of warriors and roars, fighting seemed like the only language the people understood, until now. Behind him, soft footsteps approached. He didn't turn. He already knew who it was. The Empress stopped beside him, silent for a moment. Her robes shimmered in the moonlight and her crown had been left behind. Tonight, she didn't look like a ruler. She looked thoughtful. You didn't finish him, she said softly. I didn't need to, Daniel replied. Any other male would have broken his back to prove dominance. Daniel looked up at her. That's the difference, isn't it? I didn't come here to be better than anyone, I came to be myself. She knelt beside him. And yet in doing so you've become more than they ever dreamed of. He smiled faintly. Because I didn't swing harder? No, she said, her voice warm. Because you chose mercy. And because you didn't fight for me like a prize. You stood like a man with honor. That's something many of our own have forgotten. The Empress lowered her hand into the water. Our culture has worshipped strength for centuries. Brawn, battle, loud victory. But today I saw something I never expected. A male showing strength through restraint. Daniel thought for a while before answering. Back on Earth we learned something. Power without control isn't strength, it's chaos. The Empress tilted her head. And control without heart? He looked into her eyes. Is cold. They both laughed softly. It wasn't a romantic moment. Not yet. It was something deeper. Respect. Blooming between two leaders from different stars. Later that day, Daniel walked through the palace courtyard alone. The guards nodded at him now. Servants no longer stared. They bowed slightly. Alien females, whispered as he passed, some smiling, some hiding blushes behind long sleeves, but Daniel didn't let it go to his head. He stopped near a training ground where young warriors were sparring. To his surprise, several female trainees had begun mimicking his earlier moves from the duel with Curzon. No, one said. You don't need to crush him. Just turn and shift his energy. Another girl, small but fast, flipped her partner using the move Daniel had used in the arena. The watching crowd clapped. The old trainer, a grizzled male named Drogar, frowned. Why are you copying that human's strange fighting style? One of the girls stood tall. Because he won, without hate, without shouting. Drogar snorted, but Daniel stepped forward before he could answer. She's right, Daniel said. Fighting isn't just about who hits hardest. It's about thinking, feeling, knowing when not to hit at all. The young trainees turned toward him in awe. He smiled and offered one of them a hand. Want to learn a better way? He asked. She nodded, eyes wide. And so, Daniel spent the next hour showing them the basic human defense techniques he'd learned on Earth, moves designed, not to harm, but to protect. Soon more joined. Not just girls, boys too. Even older warriors, at first watching from the edges, slowly stepped forward to listen. And in the shadows of the trees, the Empress watched quietly, arms crossed over her chest, her eyes shining. Later that evening, a special council was held in the Hall of Flame. Alien nobles and leaders filled the room. The topic, the future of their society. One elder growled, "If we follow this human's path, we risk weakening our bloodlines." Another said, "But our daughters are watching him with new eyes. They want something different now." The Empress stood up. "Enough," she said. Her voice silenced the room. "What you fear is not weakness. What you fear is change." She looked over the council, then motioned to Daniel, who stood near the back, quietly observing. "He is not here to rule. He is not here to replace. He is here to remind us of something we lost. Honor, mercy, thought. The ability to choose peace when war is easy." The room was silent. Then slowly the elder males began to nod, not in agreement with her words, but in understanding. That night the Empress found Daniel once again near the healing pool. "You've done something I couldn't," she said. He looked at her. "What's that?" "You've made my people listen, not with fear, but with hope." Daniel didn't speak. He didn't need to. The quiet between them said enough. Zinthra was changing. And it wasn't because of fists. It was because someone finally showed them what real strength looked like. The grand chamber of the Empress stood quiet under the soft glow of moonlight. The walls, usually filled with guards and ministers, were now empty. Only two remained inside, the Empress and Daniel standing opposite each other on the circular glass floor, which shimmered like water beneath their feet. The silence was heavy, not with anger or fear, but with a feeling neither of them could name yet. Daniel looked unsure, his hands behind his back, shoulders slightly tense. He had faced warriors, jealous aliens, and even the weight of thousands of eyes judging him. But now he stood before the most powerful female on the planet, and her next words could change everything. The Empress stepped forward slowly. Her long, black robe trailed behind her, and her golden circlet rested softly against her white hair. She was not dressed in battle silk or ceremonial armor. Tonight she looked less like a ruler, and more like a woman with something on her heart. "I never asked you," she began gently, "why you came here at all." Daniel breathed in and looked down for a moment. "I came with the exploration group, but I stayed because I felt like something was calling me here. And then, after the arena, after the garden, I realized it wasn't just curiosity. It was you." The Empress blinked, slowly, her eyes searching his. "And what do you see when you look at me?" Daniel hesitated. "I see someone strong, yes, but not because of your power or your throne. I see someone who leads with weight on her shoulders but kindness in her heart, someone who has been obeyed by millions, but maybe never truly understood." A long pause passed between them. The Empress exhaled softly. "For many cycles I've ruled alone. It was expected. The idea of taking a mate was ceremonial, not emotional. It was tradition, bloodline, a bond of advantage, not affection." Daniel remained quiet, letting her speak. "But then you arrived," she said. "And in a short time you reminded my people what real strength means. You calmed the storm without shouting. You led by showing them a new way." She walked closer, now. "And me. You made me feel like a woman again, not just an empress." Daniel's heart beat louder in his chest. He didn't dare move. "Do you know," she said softly, "how dangerous this would be?" He nodded. "Yes. If I chose you, I would break tradition." He looked into her eyes, then let it break. A gentle wind moved through the chamber, blowing through the tall crystal windows. The stars outside twinkled like they, too, were holding their breath. "I have advisors," she said, turning her back to him, "and they want me to choose an alliance with the southern tribes. They have offered their prince, a male with 10 war victories and pure bloodline. If I say, yes, the old ways will stay strong, Daniel stayed still. And if you say no? The Empress turned back to him, this time stepping even closer. Then I take you. A human. Someone with no title, no tribe. Someone who won not with power, but with patience. Her voice was low now. You've never asked me for anything. Daniel smiled softly. I never came here to take, only to give. She stopped just inches from him now. Her eyes, glowing softly with silver and violet light, met his. Then I will ask this once before the stars above and the ground below. She raised her hand, palm open. Daniel of Earth. Will you stay? Time seemed to freeze. And Daniel, without hesitation, lifted his hand and placed it in hers. Yes, he said. I'll stay. Not because I want a throne, not because I want a title, but because you don't deserve to stand alone anymore. At that moment, a chime rang out across the palace, soft and clear, the symbol of a decision made. In the council chambers, ministers gasped. In the gardens, alien women smiled. In the training pits, young fighters stopped to whisper. The Empress had made her choice. She would not marry the warrior prince. She had chosen a human. And that night, under the twin moons, the palace lights glowed brighter than ever before. Daniel and the Empress stood hand in hand, not as ruler and subject, but as two souls who found something impossible, and chose to believe in it anyway. The world of Zinthra would never be the same. The sun rose over Zinthra's capital city, casting golden light across towers, domes, and glass bridges. But today, something felt different. The city didn't just wake up. It held its breath. Shops opened slower. Soldiers stood taller. And, in every corner, people whispered the same words. The Empress chose a human. Daniel stood at the edge of the sky platform, dressed in a new robe made of soft Zinthran fabric. It was stitched with symbols not of royalty or war, but of change, a swirling pattern meant to represent unity between two worlds. He wasn't comfortable with titles, but he had accepted this one role, the first male consort ever chosen not for power but for character. As he looked out over the city, a soft voice interrupted his thoughts. You are nervous. He turned. The Empress stood beside him, dressed simply, without her crown. It shows, he asked. A little, she said with a small smile. But that's what makes you human, and that is why I chose you. Daniel chuckled, then looked serious. Do you think your people will accept this? She looked over the city. Not all. Some will resist, some will whisper. But the truth already planted itself. They've seen the kind of man you are. They've seen a different way to lead, and many already follow it. Below them, banners were being raised in the streets, not of war, but of balance. New schools had started training males and females together. The guards had begun teaching Daniel's defense techniques using calm, not brute force. Markets sold books written by young alien girls inspired by his courage. Children ran in the streets pretending to be the human who stood without hurting. In the palace courtyard, a special ceremony had begun. Not a royal wedding nor a political signing, but something new. A bonding of equals, open to all who wished to witness. Thousands gathered. Alien females in bright-colored robes stood beside human visitors and nobles from distant planets. Warriors who once mocked Daniel now stood in silence. And in the center of the marble circle, the Empress took Daniel's hand, raising it for all to see. She did not speak of strength or war. She spoke of choice. I ruled for many cycles with silence in my heart, she said to the crowd. Then came one who did not shout, did not demand, did not destroy. He listened. He learned. And when tested, he chose mercy. She turned to Daniel and held his gaze. By choosing him, I am not turning away from our past, but reaching toward a better future. The crowd listened. Some cheered. Others remained still, unsure. But no one walked away. That evening, Daniel walked alone through the garden paths. He needed air. Time. It was a lot to take in. Near the crystal fountain, he found something surprising. A group of alien children gathered around an old storyteller. And then the human, though tired and bruised, helped his enemy up and said, "We are not enemies unless we choose to be." The children gasped, then laughed and clapped. Daniel smiled but quietly stepped away. Behind him, a familiar voice spoke. "You've become a story now." It was Thranak. The same warrior who once tried to crush Daniel's bones now stood without armor, arms crossed, but no longer angry. Just thoughtful. "I came to laugh at you," Thranak said. "But now I don't know. I think I came to understand." Daniel nodded. "You don't have to agree with me." "I don't," Thranak admitted. "But I respect you now. That's something." They stood in silence, and for the first time it wasn't tense. It was peaceful. Later that night, Daniel sat beside the Empress under the twin moons. No ceremony, no crowd, just the two of them. "You've changed everything," she said quietly. He looked at her and smiled. "No, we did." She leaned on his shoulder. "Do you miss Earth?" "Sometimes," he said. "But I think I was meant to be here." She took his hand, fingers locking gently. "And I was meant to find you." Far above them, stars shifted. Galaxies moved. But down below, on a world once ruled by old ways, a new age had begun. Not built on force or fear, but on respect, mercy, and the courage to be different. Zinthra's future had changed. And it all began the day an alien woman looked past muscles and saw the heart of a human.